Alright, everyone. Hello, welcome back to my channel. So, I just rewatched one of my videos talking about this, and I feel like there's some things I want to clarify because I feel like I didn't say things the best way that I could. But basically, I made a video basically saying why women are leaving the feminist movement, and essentially, I was talking about the I feel like the irony of the feminist movement supporting trans women's, I guess, trans women's, trans, I shouldn't even say trans women. I think trans issues in general over women's issues, or pretty much it just came down to, I think a lot of women are recognizing that women's issues, and I feel like to explain this, it just is really just comes down, what it really hones down to is like women 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 who don't identify as women because of their feelings. It's like my identity as a woman is not because of how I feel, it's literally because of what I am. Like, I was born a woman. I honestly think this is why I feel like to be just as frank as possible, it's like we will never have the same understanding. A woman whose identity as a woman is based upon their biology is not going to have the same understanding of being a woman as a trans woman. And here is why. I think the honest, just being as truthful as possible, it's like my existence in this world as a woman is just like, it's not a feeling, it's not an identity, it's just my reality. Like my biological reality, it's like the only thing that makes me a woman, in my opinion, is my biology. I don't build any other, it's nothing else. It's like the only thing that makes me a woman is my biology. It's not my feelings, it's not my identity, it's not my thoughts. Literally just my biological reality of I was born a female. So my understanding of womanhood has always been built around being a female. It's not the gender that actually makes me a woman. It's my biology. And so I feel like this is where the confusion of, trying to distance biological sex from gender and basically say the two things are completely different is honestly creates more confusion, because you have a entire group of people who are women because of their biological sex and nothing else. Like, I don't think of being a woman as being, oh, I'm a woman because it's my gender and I just like pink and I just like dresses and I like makeup and it's like that to me is not what makes someone a woman. It's like those are things that some women do, but ultimately what makes someone a woman, and what I would say objectively is what makes someone a woman, is their biological sex. And that being my perspective of what a woman is, I feel like it's always going to differ from someone who is trans, because a trans person basically is saying, my identity as a woman isn't because of my sex. It's because of something different, It's like I can't tell you the thoughts or the feelings or what makes that someone be trans. I feel like it's different for every trans person. But this is where I feel like we will always differentiate is someone being trans is basically saying, well, I feel like a woman because of, and they're typically going to give you some sort of gender stereotype. Well, growing up, I always liked pink. I always felt more like a girl. I felt like I liked the things girls liked. And it's like they're measuring other girls based off of biology, but then saying, I identified as that because of gendered things. So it's like the gender norms associated with girls is what makes someone transgender. So it's like your understanding of being a woman or being a girl is built around gendered stereotypes. And I feel like that's not what I believe makes someone a woman. It's like the gendered stereotypes or gendered norms are never going to apply to every single woman. I know lots of women who don't like makeup. I have a mom who is a tomboy, right? She hates makeup. She hates pink. We couldn't be completely different, It's like to say that the gender, and I feel like this is just like at the root of it is we really do just have a different understanding of womanhood. And I think that's where the friction between I would say between those who identify as women and because of those things, because of gender, and women who say I'm a woman because of my biology, not because of gender stereotypes. It's like we have two very different perspectives and understandings of womanhood. And I feel like the more we cater to the language of womanhood being about gender stereotypes and gender norms, and it's just because you identify as a woman that makes you one. It's ignoring biological aspects of womanhood that the large majority of women, because let's just be very honest, trans women are not the majority of women that exist in the world. It's almost like we are trying to change how we're trying to change basically how women have been classified as women based off of their biological sex for literally thousands and thousands and thousands of years. We're trying to change how the large majority of women have always classified themselves as women according to biological sex, and we're now trying to redefine that to be about identity politics and gender stereotypes and things that I feel like were never crucial to someone being an actual woman. And when I made my video talking about how God designed men and women, and that biological sex is actually very, very important to your identity as a person. It's like my biological reality is not a costume. It's like I didn't choose to have the body that I have. I didn't choose to have a uterus. I didn't choose to have ovaries, a fallopian tube, a period, menstrual cycles. That's my biological reality. And it's almost like I understand someone who is trans has a struggle with their identity as a person because they identify more with the gender stereotypes associated with the girl, but they know they don't have the biological reality of being a female or being a male if you're a trans man. And so it's almost like for a trans person, there is a separation of sex and gender because that is how they are able to identify. It's like they don't take into account their biological sex. It's just about gender. But for the large majority of the world, their identity, their existence as a man or woman has always been solely on biological sex. And so what I am basically arguing is it doesn't make sense to redefine how the majority of people have always identified as men or women based off of their biological sex. It doesn't make sense to redefine that the entire way we define man and woman on the minority of people who have this struggle, this mental struggle between their gender identity, which is basically, I like the things that the opposite gender likes, even though I am biologically this. That is the basis for someone being trans, essentially. Except everything that's associated with that gender only exists because we understand biological sex differences between male and female. And so it's like the gender norms associated with each biological sex. It's like the gender is not what creates the biological sex. Obviously, it's the biological sex that created the gender stereotypes to begin with. But it's also like the reality of biological sex is not what changes. It's like gender stereotypes, gender norms, we create that. Gender is a social construct. We create that. We associated, dresses with biological women. We associated makeup with biological women. We normalize these gender stereotypes that are associated with each biological sex. But it's not that. I think I honestly said it best when I said it before. It's like for a trans person, their sex is different from their gender, but for the large majority, it's not. It's different. It's like that's why redefining the terms men and woman because of this minority group that has that struggle between and differentiates between their biological sex and gender. I think that is the root kind of cause of the issue or the struggle, because it's like, excuse me, the majority of people are not separating their gender from their sex. It's just like the gender stereotypes are not what is being taken into account for most people's identity, and I feel like that's always going to be the large difference. And I also feel like the understanding that without biological sex, gender doesn't even exist makes it that much, I would say, adds like this another layer of like where people have bigger issues. So I think that's why I feel like it's really important in these conversations for people to recognize, like, it's like there's two very different perspectives happening here. And I think the reason the large majority of people are probably upset or annoyed that we're changing and redefining how the large majority of people understand themselves in order to, because of someone, like, it's because of because a trans person differentiates their sex from their gender, we're now redefining women and men on the basis of, you know, oh, these are two different things, but it's just like they're only different things for a person who is trans, and it's like making the large majority change and redefine everything because a trans person does that. It doesn't really make sense when you think about it to change what the majority of people have always understood, and always defined men and women off the basis of solely biological sex. It doesn't make sense that we redefine and separate those things because a trans person separates them, essentially. And I feel like that is, I guess, the root cause, you know? I honestly feel like gender doesn't really matter to someone whose identity, I shouldn't say like gender doesn't even matter to someone who isn't questioning their gender. You know, it's like biological sex being the only basis of what makes me a woman. Gender, I don't care about gender stereotypes. I don't care about gender norms. You know, my mom not liking pink, not wearing makeup didn't make her any less of a woman, because the only thing that I ever said made me a woman was my biological sex. So it's just like, I'm a woman the same way my mom is a woman, even though we don't have the same senses, or we don't have the same gender. What am I trying to say? It's just like how someone understands gender doesn't matter for someone who is not who isn't defining themselves because of gender. It's like this is only a issue for someone who's trans to begin with. And I feel like that's why when we're trying to force the issues that someone who is trans, when we're trying to make that the same understanding for everyone else whose identity is not based around their gender at all, you know, my identity as a woman is not because of gender stereotypes. It's solely because of biological sex. It's like, this is why there's people struggling with like the push of transgendered things in mainstream, or just changing the way everyone else has always understood gender as being biological sex. It's just like this idea that you're a man or a woman because you like pink, or you wear pants, or you like sports, or like things like that. The idea that being a man or woman is because of the gender stereotypes doesn't exist to someone whose identity is built around their biological sex. Someone who says my gender is just my biological sex and nothing else. It's only an issue for those who separate them, basically, is what I'm saying. And so the rest of the world who's always said, you know, my gender is just my biological sex and nothing else, and that's the way we've always classified it, is like, it's like, this is the root of the issues that we have. Is honestly the root of the issues. It's like, it's like, I might not understand gender this, it's like, I think, and to get into it in just like the most objective way possible, gender is as real as you think it is. Like, that's just being 100% honest. It's like the gender stereotypes that we associate with biological sex are not these structured, set in stone things the way your biological sex is. Like, your biological sex is literally set in stone by your genetic code, by your DNA, by your sex chromosome. It's like, that is the most unchanging, stable, constant thing about a person: their DNA, their genetic code. Unlike biological sex, gender is not this set in stone thing, you know? we once associated, wearing dresses is only something women do. Obviously there's men that wear dresses, and it's like what we've done, and this is what I guess transgender ideology has done, is convince people that gender is more important than biological sex. That's honestly the best way I can say it, because someone is saying, because I like dresses, I'm a woman. And it's like, why is liking dresses the basis of womanhood? Or it's like, why is the gender stereotype being used as the basis of the defining aspect of womanhood or being a woman? Why are we basing these created gender stereotypes as the basis for someone's identity? And I think the truth is, like I said, the real truth is that that's not something most people do. It's something that a trans person does. It's something that a trans person does because they have this understanding of gender being separate from sex. I honestly feel like that's the only objective way I can say it, because gender has never been separate from biological sex for the rest of the world. It's like it's always just been your biological sex. It's never been anything else. It's like regardless of how someone like someone being a tomboy, it's like a woman doesn't become a man because she cuts her hair short. A woman doesn't become a man because she wears pants. A woman doesn't become a man. It's like, think of any gender stereotype you can think of, and it's like, basically, when you use gender the way the transgender community does and transgender ideology does, it basically creates the basis of the basis of gender is stereotypes. It's basically you understand woman as being a stereotype, essentially, like a gender stereotype. Wearing makeup, because you wear makeup, you're now a woman, or because you like makeup, you're now a woman. It's just like, those aren't the things that the majority of people understand to make someone a woman. And that's the point of contention, I would say. That's honestly like the root of the issue, is if you have the majority of people saying my gender is simply my biological sex, and then you have another group of people saying, well, my gender is not my biological sex. It's what I feel. It's what I feel more aligned with. It's what I think I am. It's what I feel more comfortable with. It's like we don't have the same perspective or understanding. And I honestly think it's why I feel like I always bring the point down to, it's just like, when your identity as something is built around socially constructed norms, it's like, we could have said it was normal for men to wear dresses from the beginning of time. It's like, we could have normalized any gender stereotype with either biological sex, and it's just like, that's all it took for that to become a thing. Like, it was once more gendered for men to wear high heels. It was once a gender norm for men to wear wigs, right? It's just like the gender stereotypes are not these things that are set in stone. They're constantly changing. They also are just not the most meaningful aspects, in my opinion, of being a man or being a woman. It's just like, to me, it's biological sex makes the most sense to be the basis of your gender, because it's unchanging, it's stable, it's constant, it's set in stone. It's also just like, your biological sex is a significant aspect of how you exist in the world. Like, let me just be very clear about this. Your biological sex is a significant aspect of you as a person. It's like your biological sex is maybe the most significant aspect of each human being. Whether you are a man or you are a woman is maybe the most significant thing we can measure between a human being. Race and everything else, these are also social constructs. We can debate over race and what makes someone what race. Skin tone, eye color, hair texture, whatever. These are all other like gender things. There's also not actually a biological measure of race. I don't know if a lot of people understand that, but race is not actually biologically. You can't measure race biologically. Skin color is not a race. There's not a race gene. Basically, there's literally a sex chromosome. This is like you have 23 pairs. Wait, is it 23? 24. 24 pairs of chromosomes, right? And you have one entire pair of chromosomes that are literally what differentiates your sex, and the sex is a significant aspect. It's like, even if you just look up the importance your biological sex plays in your life, is like it's the most significant thing about you. Like when men go to doctors, they have to get certain tests that women don't. When women go to doctors, they have to get certain tests that men don't, because there's a significance to you being a male or a female. And it's like the measure, your biological sex is such an important aspect of your person. For me, it's also like, why would you ignore that or not take into account like the importance of your biological sex? Like, that is a very important aspect of every single person on the planet. It's like whether you choose to be another gender or not, it's like your biological sex is still such an important part of how you exist in this world. It's like your biological sex is significant. It's significant. And I really just don't understand why we should ignore that. It's like, I don't understand why it should ever be ignored or minimized to aspects of that person's life. I also just think like your biological sex has a lot of, determines honestly a lot about how you will grow up as a person. Your biological sex determines honestly what role you play in reproduction, right? Which is, you can either be a mother or a father based off of your biological sex. It's just like, we can't pretend, we can't act like biological sex doesn't matter. And I feel like that's another part, I would say, of transgender ideology that I don't agree with, is it kind of tries to downplay the role of biological sex in people's lives. It's like, there are experiences I will have in this life that a biological male will just never have. There's experiences biological males will have in this life that I will never have. And I'm not going to pretend to have those experiences knowing I'm a biological female. It's just like, I personally don't think you can ignore biological aspects of human beings, because biological sex is a significant aspect of your existence as a human being on this planet. It's significant. It's important. It's a distinction. Like, the distinction between male and female exists because there's a significant enough difference between a male and a female to have the different names for men and women. It's just like, I don't know. I kind of feel like I have to just break things down into the most basic ways so people can understand what I'm saying, because it's not even like I'm trying to be hateful or belittle. It's just like, the root of the issue is that we have a different perspective. My perspective is biological sex is a very significant aspect of people's lives, and the differences of biological sex play an important role in every person's life. Like, you can't just ignore your biological sex. You can't ignore it. You can't act like that's not a part of your it's literally one of the most important aspects of your existence as a human being. It's just like, you can't minimize it. It's like, you can't minimize it, because it's something that is one of the most blatant obvious things about a human being. Like, you might not know the race of someone when you first see them. You might not know their ethnicity. You might not know a lot of things about them. And I guess in some ways people can say, well, you can always tell someone's race. But, mixed people who or racially ambiguous people exist. Well, you're not quite sure what they are, but you can always tell what male and female. You can tell this is a man, this is a woman. And I feel like kind of what is happening and what is being normalized is blurring the lines between men and women, and also kind of just ignoring biological sex altogether to say, men and women are just identities and biological sex doesn't matter anymore, and we just throw that all out the window. And then it's like, there are very real issues that are specific to each person's biological sex. Men will never have to worry about ovarian cancer or uterine cancer. Women, do women have prostates? I'm pretty sure we don't, but I might be wrong about that. But prostate cancer is pretty specific to men. It's just like, there are so many things that are specific to your biological sex that you can't just ignore, and you can't just pretend we can't ignore them. And I think that's what I feel like is the bigger issue in all of this, is like, biological sex is such a significant aspect of an individual person's life that erasing biological sex to I guess, and I guess this is what a transgender is doing. It's ignoring biological sex to make gender the identity, but for everyone else, it's like, we're just saying my identity is my biological sex. It's not anything else. So it's like, one ideology ignores biological sex, and the other is like, biological sex is the only thing that we should care about or we should focus on, because it's the stable, unchanging aspect of every person's existence. Now, I'm not mentioning intersex because I feel like it's just another minority. It's like, when I talk about a very minute group of people that is never going to be the majority. Majority of people that exist in this world are not intersex. I also think the other crazy thing about it is the transgendered people are also not the majority of people that exist in the world. But I guess the way the media talks about it, you would think like 50% of the population is transgender. The way that transgender issue and transgender communities and transgender issues, I guess, take a forefront in people's minds in a lot of ways. You would think it's the majority of people in this world. To be quite honest, I feel like this is nothing about this. My commentary is not about a trans person is not allowed to exist. At the end of the day, no one can control what someone does with their own body. I'm not making an argument that I can stop someone from wearing makeup or doing their hair or wearing whatever clothes they want. That is not my argument. My honest argument would be, we shouldn't use gender at all. If I had to say something actually objective, I would say gender should not even be used as the measure of a measure of a person. It's like, we shouldn't even use gender at all. That would be my actual argument, because gender is not is gender doesn't actually exist, because it's a social construct. Like, gender stereotypes are socially constructed. Gender is something we created. Gender norms are things we created. However, they exist because biological sex existed first. It's like men and women don't exist without biological sex anyways. So it still does, it always does, it is going to, at the end of the day, hone down to biological sex. It's like what the gender that someone is trying to be is still associated with a primary biological sex. Now, we can say trans, it's like there's enough trans people that exist in the world that maybe there are trans women that just see other trans women and they're like, yeah, I'm a trans woman based off of the other trans women I see. Maybe they're not even they don't care about women at all, like, biological woman's existence in the world at all. It's just, I see other trans people, I like how trans people exist in the world, and that's why that's my identity, and that's how I identify as a trans woman based off of other trans women existing in the world. So it's just like, you can say the argument that, there is no inclination of gender that is associated with biological sex, but I also just feel like objectively that's not true. Anyways, the real thing I wanted to say is just like, when we at the root of the issue is we don't have the same perspective on gender. Gender being biological, gender being equal to biological sex is what has been the norm for centuries, and it's just like we're now redefining gender to be, not tied to biological sex at all, and just, whatever someone chooses to identify. And I feel like that is what is actually creating a lot of issues. I just don't strongly believe you cannot ignore the reality of biological sex in all of these conversations and all of these issues, because it is a significant aspect of a person's life. The other thing I would say, just as a kind of like why I feel like it rubs some women the wrong way, is it's almost a why it rubs some women the wrong way when it feels like or looks like or seems like trans issues are being prioritized over every other issue that might exist for someone because of their biology. And I wouldn't even argue that this is necessarily the truth. I feel like it's really just the media pushes things. The media manipulates things. The media can make or break the prevalence of an issue in a lot of ways, because it's like, if mainstream media wasn't highlighting trans people all the time, trans issues all the time, most people would not honestly even care about what trans people are doing in the world. And I feel like this is something that it's almost like we're being manipulated to see the issues because they're constantly being highlighted, in a sense. Like, transgender people have always existed, right? That's the argument some people have. There's always been people who cross-dressed, or there's always been people who whatever, but it's like they weren't always being talked about night and day on mainstream media. And it's like you almost had more peace because you weren't getting all of this attention, you weren't getting all of this highlighting. And trans woman, trans activist, trans model, trans whatever. It's just like, the more it's like, because it's being talked about a lot more, that is the reason that there's more, I guess, awareness of also other issues about it coming into play. which I also think is because of partially media manipulation, because it's like, if trans people make, maybe, I don't know what percentage, I think it's like 2 to 3% of the population. That's not majority of people are trans. It's not even close to majority of people being trans, but it's like we're talking about a group of people that is not the majority of people in this country, but making those issues the priority over every other issue that exists in the world. It's like, it doesn't make sense that people are even choosing to focus on the trans community or trans issue, and it's only happening because that's what is being pushed, that's what's being highlighted, that's what's being talked about. It's like we kind of created the issue in some ways by, honestly, in a lot of senses, forcing it. We forced the issue into the forefront to begin with. Anyways, I think that's all I can really say. I was going to make a funny joke, but it probably is not going to be funny for a lot of people, so I'm not going to say it right now, but I might post a short of that. Anyways, I hope y'all enjoyed this video, this perspective. As always, please be respectful in the comments. I'm not going to argue with people. I state my opinion respectfully and objectively. This is not a personal attack on anyone. If you find anything I said in this video offensive, that is not my intention. I only state, I guess, my thoughts on things because I feel like, well, one, it's a free country. It's a free country. Not really. I really think it's just like sharing your opinion or thoughts is a way to, I guess, start a conversation, but also a way to challenge or get a new perspective. See how someone else thinks about the world. I share really only how I think or how I feel. Now, some people might agree, some people might disagree. That is perfectly okay. However, I definitely think even if you disagree, you can be respectful and not be hateful towards people, and that's all.